Welcome to the Reality Revolution. Today I have a new channeling from Quo. This one was delivered on April 19th, 2023. Quo is a group of higher density beings channeled by LL Research that answers spiritual questions. They are composed of a variety of social memory complexes, and the nature of their channelings has been very empowering and helpful on my own spiritual path, and that's why I like to share it with you. This particular channeling is very recent. According to the beginning of the channeling, some of the portions of it were missed by human error, so I'm going to fill in a little bit and then we can go with it. The question is how we relate to a sense of responsibility and pressure when we are in service to others. I find this question to be super important at this time. I know that everybody I talk to is encountering some level of pressure. Due to the culture they're in, due to our society, time is sped up. People are working more hours. People feel a greater responsibility, and it relates to our ability to give service, our responsibility in giving specific services, and it all matters. People are fraught, worried, and feel pressure to provide the service that they want. And so they talk to Quo about this and ask about how we deal with this responsibility and the pressure that is involved with it. We begin with Jim channeling. I am Quo, and I'm with this instrument at this time. We greet each in the love and light of the one infinite creator, and we thank each of you for calling us to your circle of seeking today. It is a great honor to be here. By being here, we are able to proceed upon our own spiritual journey and walk with you closer and closer into unity with the one infinite creator. We would, as always, suggest to you that it is very helpful if you would consider the words and thoughts that we express in our responses to your queries with a degree of salt, shall we say, your own personal discrimination that will allow you to determine which of our words and thoughts are helpful to you. Use them as you will, and for those which are not perhaps useful at this time, to set them aside so that you may not worry about them. By doing this personal assertion of discrimination, you allow us to speak more freely and to respond to your query in a manner in which we hope will be helpful to you. For we, like you, wish to be of service to others, in whatever way we are asked, in a manner which moves from the beginning concept of service to more advanced concepts, shall we say, as time and experience move through each entity, revealing to each who wishes to be of service greater and more profound means of accelerating one's spiritual journey by being of service in whatever manner you are called upon to do at any time. For you see, you are as we are, those who have moved in seeming separation from the one creator that seek a reunification, the long process of the journey through the densities of experience, so that the final reunification may be complete from the seeming separation, especially of the third density illusion. That you exist in this third density illusion with the veil of forgetting makes the concept of how to be of service to others perhaps somewhat more difficult to perceive at times, more difficult to truly evaluate your progress, your desires, your abilities, your opportunities. All of these go into the mix of possibilities of being of service, of utilizing your great desire to be more than you are now, in what you might call an illusory sense. In truth, you are the creator experiencing itself, growing on a daily basis, doing your best to offer yourself in whatever manner that you may to others in service to them. Whether you are as these instruments gathered here tonight who wish to offer the best transmission of our thoughts and words to those who will read them or hear them, and are perhaps not always appreciative of one's own efforts, for it is the nature of the one who seeks to be of service to others in more and more effective ways to look at the self and the abilities and the experiences and be perhaps a bit more critical of the self than others might be. And this is natural, for you are, as all, wishing to accelerate and expand your spiritual growth, your service to others. And this we applaud, for we also have the same desire, yet we do not operate within the veil of forgetting, so we have more of the sense of completion and satisfaction in knowing that there is only so much that an entity of any density can do to be of service to others, for the seeming limitations of the self in the definition of the self, the abilities of the self, the desires of the self, are those which do not hold sway as much in our expanded reality of the nature of creation as being that of unity. So within your third density illusion, you have the opportunity to move through the seeming confusion, doubt, desire to be better, wondering how this could occur. And these very questions themselves, my friends, can be as food for your spiritual growth. For it is quite a responsible act to question how you are doing, what you are doing, why and how it manifests. This is a way that one may keep the feet moving upon the spiritual path, looking at the progress that has been made and the intentions, we should say, that have propelled this progress. We feel that within your third density illusion there is so much that depends upon one's intentions. For you have been told, and accurately so, we do believe that the third density is not the density of understanding. It is the density of desiring, the density of being hopeful, faithful, exercising the will, and setting the intentions to build all future actions and service upon. So we congratulate you and applaud your efforts to expand your service, to purify your abilities, and to become once again in your own eyes and the eyes of those about you a portion of the one infinite Creator that is utilizing the best of intentions, the open heart of love, the exercise of will and faith, and putting it out there for all to receive as food for growth. At this time, we will transfer this contact to the one known as Gary. We are those of Quo. We are those known to you as the principle of Quo, and we arrive at this moment once again perceiving through the closed eyes of this instrument the waning sunlight of your day streaming into the room, and the creatures near the window scurrying about. We would continue our discussion and exploration on this phenomena that is somewhat unique to the third density experience, though the learning of responsibility extends far beyond your own to ever-deepening degrees, becoming a key component of the evolutionary journey through the fifth density. But it is here, within the veiled condition of third density, that you create and are, from your conscious perspective, contained within a separate self, which is felt to be inadequate or incomplete, or perhaps, depending upon the judgments, substandard or deficient, or not whole in some way, and this identity creates many offspring perceptions that further distort the experience of self and the connection with the Creator. So the self in this environment strives and strives to meet the standard, to be ever more perfect, to remove the perceived flaws, to make no mistakes. And when one is operating in such a moonlit landscape whereby these perceptions take root while seeking to perform a service upon any level, particularly when eyes are upon that self through its performance or conduct or the product of its efforts, then there may be an added pressure which the entity may experience. For the experience of the anticipation of failure, of not meeting expectations, of being perceived as perhaps less than in some way strikes to the heart of that self, which feels incomplete and lacking in the world, not having consciously realized the infinite worth of your being by virtue of your existence within the creation as a child of the Creator and as the Creator. Your worth is constantly meted out by your illusory perceptions of meeting standards, whether your own or others. It is hard catalyst for the self to feel they have failed themselves. Ultimately, the root of this perception is intensified and amplified when receiving or anticipating or concerned about that feedback from others, even if never actually received, never actually spoken to the self from another. The possibility of it combined with the self's judgment of the self may, as many of your planet know all too well, create an anxiety upon a spectrum of intensity, from mild and barely registering upon the conscious mind to crippling, to a severity wherein the self will negate the self through self-destructive behaviors, self-sabotaging or self-harming behaviors, or isolating from others, retreating from the world, refusing to share one's light for fear of judgment, of not meeting what is perceived to be expected of the self. We, my brothers and sisters, empathize with this condition. For your incompleteness, as you perceive it, seems so complete, so all-encompassing, and within the corridors of your mind, it may be difficult for you to find escape as you live with these non-self-affirming thoughts. Yet there is no escape from your world, even your catalyst. There is certainly postponement and ample multi-incarnational space to avoid and to engage the self otherwise, and to distract the self. But ultimately, this catalyst accumulates or intensifies or finds some way to intrude upon your mental gateway, so to speak, often through the mechanism of suffering, such that once again you will be called to seek the heart of the self, to use this material for its reflective qualities and revealing self to self in order to find what is real, what is yours, what is you, and what is not you. Part of that self-inquiry and untangling is a teasing apart of the expectations which you have internalized from your societal environment. As this circle was discussing before this question was asked, there is a growing sense of increasing pressure in the societal level as the expectations are raised in terms of how to be human, what role one is to play in the society, what errors there are to avoid, what proper we correct this instrument, the appropriate things to say and not say. And this is exacerbated by the gauntlet of transition through which your peoples move, as the old structures become dismantled and uprooted that had previously helped to facilitate greater shared understanding, ever divided though your peoples have historically been. And as competing visions emerge in the confusion, not emerge as novel per se, though there is space for new seeds to take root in the new ground of fourth density light, offering new and broader perspective, but old perceptions and visions as well, myriad varieties of various understandings and misunderstandings about the nature of self, influenced by culture, ideology, religion, and other modalities or systems having to do with who and what the self is, and who and what you as peoples are. Those competing visions seek often in asserting themselves, seeking instead of dissolving the boundaries, as happens in the workings of the activated and opened heart, but to assert dominance, or to compete, or to win, or to squash the undesired perception. And the individual seeking to walk firmly through these varied windstorms, shall we say, that push and pull these various value systems that place competing mutually contradictory expectations upon the self can, as a byproduct, feel a level of pressure in this experience. Who among you could possibly live up to these myriad standards? Though the key is available to it, your society, in its fumbling, has continually overlooked and missed entirely that key, which sees that the way forward is not in clothing oneself in a particular ideology, but in loving all those who you encounter, whatever beliefs may be bouncing around in the interior of their craniums as you may see it. In the open heart, there is non-judgmental acceptance, particularly as that heart is purified and perfected. Even when, as is natural, there is disagreement or disapproval of any other or their performance, or particularly the self and its performance, in the heart there is acceptance. And in that acceptance, if taken further into the Blu-ray, there is clear seeing of the soul nature of the other being. A clear seeing which balances the apparent incompleteness upon the surface, the apparent distortions which cause one to identify with an act, within one part of a spectrum of wholeness, and the inherent wholeness and completeness of the other self. Imagine, my sisters and brothers, seeing and experiencing this wholeness in yourself and in those you meet, knowing that however they may be showing up upon an outer level in the moment, their true nature underneath that outer appearance is already of a nature which is complete. Whatever you may do in your incarnation, whatever heights you may achieve or depths to which you may sink in your despair, your essential nature remains. You continue a path of self-discovery that includes changing and transforming the outer nature, but so that it may make greater contact with the inner nature, that the outer nature may more transparently reflect that which is already within. There is no work you can do upon the outer level to become more worthy, more what you always have been. There is instead the releasing of the illusion that you are separate from that. And in so doing, from the perspective of the incarnate actor, one discovers and experiences this sense of infinite worthiness. And in so doing sees that while pressure, like most phenomena in your experience, is never fully eliminated, and should not be, we correct this instrument, and whose elimination should not be sought, but it becomes less of a stumbling block upon your journey. It, through this long progress, becomes an ally, as we were discussing through the one known as Jim in terms of catalyzing the journey. For prior to the early Logoi's invention of the veil, there was no such pressure upon the third density being. There was in fact a difficulty meeting the honor duty of ascending the stairway of light upon the spiritually evolutionary journey. That is to say, of doing the homework of learning and advancing. As those of Ra have said, through this group, there was no fear too terrible or love too great. Now that you, our friends, exist deep into the experiment of the veil of forgetting, you are greatly susceptible to this pressure. You who are sensitive, which speaks to many upon your sphere, wanderers and spiritual seekers included, feel it all the more acutely. And in this nexus of your planet's evolutionary journey, where a new world is being born and seeking to be born, that pressure may push in upon the walls of your mind and create a squeezing, a great worry, and anxiety in such a way that clouds your vision and your peace and locks your conscious attention within the stream of time. This, again, is why we frequently counsel the activity of meditation. In meditation, one can learn, and in a very real way, practice disengaging from these mental patterns that obscure and narrow the expansiveness of being, that separate oneself from that infinite wellspring of worth that is always rising up from within the heart of self to spread and radiate outward. Tasting this experience opens one to the understanding of their true magnificence, helps one to stand back from that small self which is wounded, vulnerable, and maybe even frightened by the world, so that so-called small self may be nurtured and brought into the heart, listened to, and talked to. We would bring this portion of our channeling through this instrument to a close with a reminder or encouragement, we should say, to find ways to relax. You, our friends, are aware of the various means by which the body may be relaxed, including rest, which your peoples chronically lack, the steeping of oneself in the warm waters combined with the salt crystal and so forth. This, as you know, has a direct corollary effect upon the mind as well, for the mind and body are inextricably intertwined. But it is as well also to combine with these ways work to relax the mental patterns, which as a base requires some level of mindfulness and awareness of those mental patterns. We see often among your peoples that they are coiled up so very tightly in anticipation, expectation, meeting responsibility, expending themselves in service, and assaulted, as they perceive it on multiple sides, by one seeming necessity or another, one voice or another with which or with whom they must contend. This tightening and coiling creates knots within the self as various strands of your energy knot up and get into further tangles with other strands of developmental energy within you, to a degree that, as this instrument experiences it, becomes baseline, shall we say. It becomes default in the background, unnoticed. The self does not realize the degree to which its subsequent perceptions are impacted and affected by this underlying coiling up and tensing and entanglement. One key then is to relax through visualization or other mental practice, combined, as we have said, with bodily aid to find ways to breathe deeply and allow the tension to dissipate, to literally perceive the self unwinding and expanding and resting and allowing in a way that disengages the nervous and neurotic and worrisome tendencies, in a way which becomes okay with just being, without doing anything in particular achieving one thing or another without movement through the perceived space or time, but just resting in simple being, simple, open, expansive awareness, and relaxing. At this time, we would transfer our contact to the one known as Kathy. We are those known to you as Quo. We are those known to you as Quo, and we are now with this instrument. We wish to continue this train of thought we've been offering regarding the activity of and the perception of responsibility and any associated feelings such as pressure or concern, worry that may accompany the action of responsibility. A responsibility and an action that goes with that is essentially a service. As we previously said, the service to others, which is part of this concept. Any act of offering or giving to another, or to others, any act of producing a product, making it available, delivering it to others, constitutes a service for which one may take responsibility in accomplishing it. We may offer the thought that the act of carrying out a responsibility is that of an act stemming from an intention that preceded it. It is not the same as the self. It is not the same as one's worth or one's excellence or level of expertise. It is simply the act of serving. And we may offer also the thought and understanding what responsibility is in its essence. To examine the word responsibility and to notice that what it may be seen as is actually the ability to respond to a need, to a request from another or from others. Having that ability to respond is innate within any person upon your planet. You are born with this ability to respond. It is natural to you and makes all interactions between selves and other selves in harmony, serving and receiving and giving back and continuing this cycle. This ability to respond comes essentially from the heart, the intention to serve, and it is done in its essence and through love, being imbued with this love. Then if one were to remember this in one's daily round of activities, serving, receiving service, then this should help in dropping away of any idea of pressure, for there is no pressure in love. For truly, though it may not always seem so on the surface, all the giving and receiving that is done upon your planet really is more harmonious than it may look or appear. If you could notice that every service offered, every product offered, like yourself, is made of light, and then imbued with that love of the intention of giving and serving. And we may suggest that if one could simply remember that it is not only or purely a physical act or something of material nature, but rather is in its essence a metaphysical exchange, a metaphysical offering, this would lighten the burden of thinking that there is a weight to carry or a heavy job to be done or a worrisome load to transfer when offering a service or a product. See it rather as a thought made of light delivered in love, and it will lighten the burden. It will make it seem as if there is nothing heavy to carry at all, but simply to offer something weightless and beautiful. We would suggest that the act of serving others and responsibility, true responsibility, is more of an act of beingness than it is of doingness. Some, it seems, of the cultures upon your planet at this time, being more advanced in technological ways, where time is being sped up and information is known instantly across the planet, where faster receipt of goods and services seems to be more and more expected as the norm. We understand that in these cultures, such conditions will or may create a sense of pressure, but it is in these very cultures that these ones may need to look within to their own beingness and to separate that from what seems to be the expectations that have grown into place in those cultures. Recognize that innately entities are greater than just their seemingly human body, mind, spirit as they appear, but that they include a greater self, a higher self, a spirit within them, connected with them, and that being, that greater self, operates in light and love. Even in advanced culture, dependent upon technology and speed, meditation, yes, is in one way to return to the truth of self. That innate knowing of beingness, within where time and pressure don't exist, but where light and love exist. We may point out in this instrument's awareness of two cultures that have an awareness of beingness in the moment, of offering service in the moment without pressure, one being the Inca culture in South America, in which every person within the tribe has a place, has something to offer, no matter if they are a newborn or the most aged person in the tribe, and everything in between. Each one has a role to play. Each one has a joy of being. Each one smiles with light. Each one gives up their heart. And this culture has harmony. This culture moves and lives and has their being without pressure. Even just remembering that such a culture is still alive and active upon your planet can help anyone remember their own innate divine humanity, such as this simple culture exhibits with such grace, where everyone feels valued, no matter what the result, for they know that they are not their results. They are who they are. They are beingness. And everything they offer is enough, more than enough. And another culture this instrument is aware of is the Japanese culture, which has a saying that this instrument has found particularly instructive and helpful. In English, this is that it is desirous to be one with one's way. To be one with one's way means the beingness in what one is doing matches exactly the soul and spirit and mind of the person. In effect, what one is doing is the same vibration as what one is being. And we suggest that this understanding which the Japanese culture has of doing their daily work, achieving their daily accomplishments, if it is done with the doingness and the beingness harmonized and blended, there is considered in that culture a harmony of output, a harmony of delivering what the person is offering. And it is a most high example, we would say, of the beingness to which we referred through the previous instrument. One does not need to become a member of these cultures to do and be in a non-pressured way. But simply becoming aware of these ways of being is helpful. All the ways that anyone needs to become aware of, which may help one live a happy, peaceful, and joyful life, can be found within the self in the state of meditation. We correct this instrument, all beings have the innate ability to live from a place of peace and joy. It can be considered a birthright, for to be made out of light and love would imply the harmonious state of peace and joy, even when a culture seems to demand a certain level of results. If the service or product is offered with light and love, and in peace and joy, with the doingness and beingness blended, it seems to us that it can only be accepted by the receiver exactly what is needed or wanted, producing harmony in the exchange. We hope this offers additional understanding of the potentials of service. And we now take our leave of this instrument and transfer the contact to the one known as Jim. We are those of Quo. Jim channeling. I am Quo, and am once again with this instrument. We are most grateful for having the opportunity and the honor of speaking through each instrument this evening. We feel that the question was provided a great deal of expansion through each instrument, as was our intention. We are hopeful that all who may be aware of this information through reading or listening to it can see how this applies to all seekers of truth who wish to offer themselves in service to the Creator in each other being that they may meet in some fashion or form. For all are teach learners and learn teachers, and all give in some fashion to others. This is your great journey through the third density and the octave of densities in this creation of the one infinite Creator. All teach, all serve, all learn, all are one. At this time, we will take our leave of this instrument and this group. We leave you rejoicing in love and light, thanking all for being open to our words tonight. We are known to you as those of Quo, Adonai, Vasu, Boragas. And that concludes this interesting discussion of responsibility and pressure as channeled by Quo on April 19th, 2023. I found this to be a timely channeling, and although some of the concepts are somewhat generic, in their own unique way, they're addressing the conundrum that we have. We want to be of service. Sometimes it feels like pressure. Sometimes it feels like responsibility. Sometimes we have these responsibilities in our life, and there seems to be a distortion in that. It can be overwhelming. We become worrisome and anxious, and it's stressful, and it reduces our ability to give effective service. Quo very basically says here, it's good for you to relax a little bit, let go a little bit, to go into meditation and understand the patterns of thought that you have regarding a specific topic or thing. We all have responsibilities, as that would of course be linked to our greater power and knowledge and understanding of fourth density. As we gain power to create the realities around us, to offer love in service to others, there does feel as if there is the greater responsibility to do so. And for some, on the spiritual path, this can become another catalyst where you become stressed out all the time. I felt it. I felt like I need to be doing more. I have a greater responsibility to be doing more. I'm not doing enough. I put pressure on myself. I feel a greater responsibility, and I feel like there are energies that get bundled up in me because I'm not giving the service that I want to give. I feel like that it's used up energy that I can't give properly, and so it's a common struggle. If you're struggling to offer service, you feel a responsibility in that. Go back and listen to this channeling. They're calming words. You are offering the service of love and light. And if you tune into those very aspects and become and be, this beingness that they talk about allows you to release all the worries and stress that can be linked to this responsibility. Because yes, we do have a greater responsibility, but we also can tune into the light and love, and a natural path forms, and we can let go of the anxieties and concerns and pressure that can be linked to this responsibility and offer service in a loving and proper way. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. If you feel increased responsibilities and pressures as you move into the light and move into service, I would like to know what kind of catalyst you're facing and how you overcome these pressures. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.